She looked at me bleeding on the hospital gurney and told the doctors I was not her daughter, that she had never seen me before in her life. She had absolutely no idea that the nurse who was about to read my ID bracelet worked for me. If you love emotional stories of family betrayal and seeing the truth come to light at the most unexpected moment, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. I have always believed that the deepest wounds are not the ones that bleed on the outside, but the ones that cut straight through the heart and leave no visible scar. In Monterrey, Mexico, a city of towering mountains and relentless ambition, I learned this lesson in the most brutal way possible. My name is Mariana, and for 28 years, I carried the invisible weight of being the forgotten daughter. My mother, Sofia, was a beautiful, cold woman who married my father for his money and spent her entire life resenting my very existence. From the moment my sister Daniela was born, 2 years after me, Sofia made it painfully clear that Daniela was the golden child, the perfect daughter who could do no wrong, while I was nothing more than an inconvenient reminder of a marriage she had grown to despise. I grew up wearing Daniela's hand-me-down clothes, eating the leftovers from her plate, and sleeping on a small cot in the corner of the laundry room, while my sister enjoyed a spacious bedroom with a canopy bed and a walk-in closet full of new dresses. My father was a kind but weak man who traveled constantly for work, and whenever he was home, my mother made sure to keep me hidden away, out of his sight, so she could maintain her perfect image of a happy family with one beautiful, accomplished daughter. I learned very early in life that I had to survive on my own, that no one was coming to rescue me, and that the only person I could truly count on was myself. I started working at the age of 14, cleaning office buildings at night after school, saving every single peso I earned in a small tin box hidden under the loose floorboard of the laundry room. I studied relentlessly, staying up until 3 in the morning, reading medical textbooks I borrowed from the public library by flashlight, determined to escape the prison of neglect my mother had built around me. While Daniela was attending expensive private parties and spending my father's money on designer handbags, I was teaching myself biology, chemistry, and business administration, dreaming of a future where I would never have to beg for love or money from anyone again. By the time I turned 18, I had saved enough money to move out of that house and never look back. I worked 2 jobs during the day to pay for my nursing degree and studied business management at night. It was exhausting, and there were nights I wanted to give up. But the memory of my mother's cold, dismissive eyes and the sting of being treated like an invisible servant kept me going. After graduating at the top of my class, I started working at a small private clinic in the outskirts of Monterrey, where I learned everything about hospital administration, patient care, and the complex machinery of the healthcare industry. I was quiet, observant, and relentless. Within 10 years, I had gone from cleaning offices to owning my first small clinic, then a second, and then a third, each one expanding my reach across the growing medical landscape of northern Mexico. But my family never knew any of this. In their eyes, I was still the same forgotten girl who had left home with nothing but a worn-out backpack and a heart full of silent determination. Every time my mother saw me at a rare family gathering, she would look at my simple clothes, my modest car, and my quiet demeanor with visible satisfaction, believing that I had failed in life, that I was just another struggling nurse barely making ends meet. Daniela married a wealthy businessman named Mauricio, and together they flaunted their luxurious lifestyle at every opportunity, making sure to remind me at every family dinner that I was the one who had amounted to nothing. I never corrected them. I let them believe their comfortable lies because I knew that the truth would come out at the perfect moment, and when it did, it would hit them harder than any argument ever could. The moment arrived on a humid Thursday afternoon in October. I was driving back from a board meeting at my newest acquisition, a state-of-the-art private hospital in the prestigious San Pedro Garza Garcia district of Monterrey, when a distracted driver ran a red light and slammed into the driver's side of my vehicle. The impact was deafening, a violent explosion of metal and glass that sent my car spinning across the intersection. I felt a sharp, searing pain in my ribs and my right leg, and the world around me became a blur of sirens, flashing lights, and distant voices calling for help. I woke up briefly on a stretcher, the cold plastic of an oxygen mask pressed against my face, the blinding white lights of the hospital ceiling passing above me like a tunnel. I could hear the urgent voices of doctors and nurses around me, calling out my blood pressure, my heart rate, and instructions I could not fully process. But in that haze of pain and confusion, I heard a voice I recognized instantly, a voice that had dismissed me 1,000 times before. It was my mother, Sofia, standing somewhere nearby, her voice sharp and filled with her usual cold arrogance. I heard her saying to someone, probably a hospital administrator, that she had been called because my ID card was in my wallet. but that there had clearly been a terrible mistake. She said it with such casual cruelty, as if she were returning a defective product to a store. She explained that she had not seen me in years and that she wanted nothing to do with this situation, that the hospital should contact someone else because she was not responsible for me. I heard Daniela's voice too, agreeing with my mother, saying that they had a gala dinner to attend that evening and that they could not waste the entire afternoon sitting in a hospital waiting room for a sister they barely considered family. But the moment that cut through the fog of my pain like a sharp blade was when I heard my mother raise her voice and say to the attending physician, with absolute undeniable clarity, "I am telling you, this girl is not my daughter. I have never seen her before in my life. She is a complete stranger. Do not call me again." And then I heard Daniela add, her voice dripping with the same venom she had used on me since childhood, "She's a nobody. We don't know her. Just treat her like any other patient and bill the state." I lay there on the stretcher, my body broken and my ribcage screaming with every shallow breath, but the pain in my chest from those words was far worse than any broken bone. My own mother had denied my existence in the most public, humiliating way possible. She had looked at me, bleeding and unconscious, and decided that I was not worth the inconvenience of being her daughter. She had chosen to erase me rather than take responsibility for the life she had brought into this world. But what my mother and my sister did not know, what they could not possibly have known, was that the hospital they were standing in was mine. Every single room, every operating table, every piece of equipment, and every salary of the doctors and nurses attending to me was paid for by my company, Grupo Médico del Norte. I had purchased this hospital in a quiet private transaction 6 months earlier, and I had kept my ownership completely confidential, even from the local medical board, because I preferred to work behind the scenes without the burden of public attention. The head nurse, a calm, professional woman named Elena who had worked with me for years at my first clinic, recognized me the moment the ambulance doors opened. She had been my right hand since the very beginning, and she knew exactly who I was, what I had built, and the kind of family I came from because I had confided in her during our long shifts together. Elena saw my mother standing at the reception desk, heard her cold words denying me, and felt a wave of controlled fury that she channeled into precise, deliberate action. Elena walked calmly to the reception desk, where my mother was still arguing with the administrative staff about being released from any responsibility. Elena held up my ID bracelet, the standard plastic band that every patient receives upon admission, and read the name printed on it in a clear, steady voice that carried across the entire waiting room. "The patient's name is Mariana Rivas de la Garza," Elena announced. "She is the founder, CEO, and sole owner of Grupo Médico del Norte, the corporation that owns this hospital, the surgical wing, the emergency department, and every single piece of equipment in this building." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the distant hum of the ventilation system above me. My mother's face, which had been set in an expression of cold irritation, slowly transformed into a mask of absolute disbelief. Her mouth opened and closed several times like a fish gasping for air, but no sound came out. Daniela, standing beside her, clutched her expensive leather handbag so tightly her knuckles turned white and her face drained of all color as the weight of Elena's words sank in. Elena did not stop there. She stepped closer to my mother, her voice still calm, but now carrying an edge of cold steel. "Mrs. Rivas," she said, "you just told our entire medical staff that this woman is not your daughter, that you have never seen her before, and that we should treat her as a stranger. Your words have been recorded by our admission system, as per standard hospital protocol. You have legally and officially denied any relation to the owner of this hospital. Under Mexican law, you have therefore waived any right to make medical decisions on her behalf, to visit her during her recovery, or to receive any information about her condition." My mother's face crumbled. The composed, arrogant mask she had worn for decades finally cracked, revealing the panicked, desperate woman underneath. She reached out and grabbed Elena's arm, her voice trembling as she stammered that it had all been a terrible misunderstanding, that she was stressed and had not been thinking clearly, that of course Mariana was her daughter, her own flesh and blood, and she demanded to see her immediately. But Elena gently but firmly removed my mother's hand from her arm and shook her head. "I am sorry, Mrs. Rivas," she said, her voice unwavering, "but you made your choice very clearly, and you made it in front of dozens of witnesses. The hospital's legal team has already been notified of your statement. You are no longer authorized to be here. Security will escort you and your daughter out of the building." 2 security guards appeared at Elena's side, large men in dark uniforms who stepped forward with professional efficiency. My mother began to protest loudly, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch, but the guards took her by the elbows and began guiding her firmly toward the main entrance. Daniela followed, her high heels clicking unevenly against the polished floor as she tried to argue, to explain, to somehow undo the damage of their own cruel words. But it was too late. The automatic glass doors slid open, and they were guided out into the humid Monterey afternoon, standing on the sidewalk outside the very hospital they had just been denied entrance to. I learned all of this later, pieced together from Elena's patient report and the security camera footage I reviewed from my private recovery suite. The surgery on my leg was successful, and I spent the next 4 days in a luxurious private room on the top floor of the hospital, a suite reserved exclusively for VIP patients and board members, with a panoramic view of the Sierra Madre Mountains. The irony was not lost on me. My mother had tried to abandon me in a public emergency room, but I ended up recovering in the most exclusive suite of my own hospital, surrounded by the best surgeons and nurses that my company employed. On the 3rd day of my recovery, I received a report from my legal department. My mother and Daniela had tried repeatedly to contact the hospital, to demand access to my room, to explain that they had made a mistake. They had even gone to the local news, trying to paint themselves as concerned family members being unfairly kept from a dying relative. But the hospital's legal team had the recorded admission system logs, the witness statements from the staff, and the security footage of the entire incident. Any attempt to challenge the hospital's decision in court would only expose their own cruelty to the public, and their lawyers quietly advised them to drop the matter entirely. I also discovered through a private investigator that my mother and Daniela's comfortable lifestyle had been built entirely on borrowed time and mounting debt. My father's modest inheritance had been spent years ago on luxury vacations and furniture they could not afford. Mauricio, Daniela's husband, was drowning in failed business ventures and loans he could never repay. They had been hoping, in the back of their minds, that I might one day be able to help them financially, which was the only reason they had kept me in their lives at all. But now, they had publicly and permanently destroyed any chance of ever receiving a single peso from me. On the morning of my discharge, Elena helped me into a wheelchair and personally escorted me to the main entrance. The automatic glass doors opened, and the fresh air of Monterey washed over my face. Standing across the street, huddled under a storefront awning, were my mother and Daniela. They looked smaller than I remembered, diminished, their expensive clothes now looking slightly worn and out of place. My mother saw me and took a hesitant step forward, her hand raised as if to wave, as if to call out my name. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who had raised me, the woman who had denied me, the woman who had spent my entire life making me feel invisible. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not forgiveness. Just a vast, quiet emptiness where love should have been. I turned my head away, nodded to Elena, and was helped into the black luxury SUV that was waiting for me. As the vehicle pulled away, I did not look back. I had spent too many years looking back, hoping for a love that was never coming. It was time to look forward. Those who deny their own blood in a moment of crisis reveal the true depth of their character, and the universe has a way of ensuring that such cruelty is never forgotten. What did you think of Mariana's journey and the poetic justice that was served at the hospital that day? Share your thoughts in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel to support our mission of bringing powerful stories of truth and redemption to life.